Thank you very much, everybody, for being here today. This event is part of the Sustainable Solutions Lecture Series. This is an initiative of the UMass system. At the QR code there, you can access the website of the lecture series, where you can also see videos of past lectures. Next slide, please. The lecture series, as I mentioned, is a UMass system collaboration. It's hosted by the School of Earth and Sustainability at UMass Amherst, but it includes numerous partners, and many members of our partners are here today, including the School of Public Policy at UMass Amherst, the School of the Environment at UMass Boston, the Sustainable Solutions Lab at UMass Boston, the RIST Institute for Sustainability and Energy, UMass Lowell, UMass Dartmouth, the UMass Chan Medical School, the Stone Living Lab. Then we have a partner that is an international partner, the Naturance program, which is based in Europe and is a consortium of numerous universities, including the University of Venice, the London School of Economics. I should also mention that this year we received support from the Nature Conservancy, that were also part of our lecture series. And for this event, we also, and also long-term partner, the Massachusetts Municipal Association. And for this event, we also have with us a representative of the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program of the state of Massachusetts and the Executive Office of Energy and Environment. Next slide, please. I would like just to mention the mission of the Sustainable Solution Lecture Series. You can consider this platform as a forum to support and explore together innovative strategies to do well by doing good, to support sustainable economic growth and promote socioeconomic and environmental well-being. Our lecture series, as I said, it's a forum. We welcome and we encourage and we nurture cross-sectoral dialogue and partnerships between private sector, public sector, and academia. And we are welcoming and supportive of research collaborations between audience members and organizers. So reach out if you have, if you want to connect with us. Next slide, please. For today, our plan is to present the key findings of a statewide survey. Many of you in the audience were perhaps respondents in the survey, and we are going to give you the preliminary results. I will mention a few more things about the survey in the next slides. But before we start, I would like to mention that we are going to start with the opening remarks by Professor Rob De Conto, who's the director of the School of Earth and Sustainability at UMass Amherst. Then I will present the results together with my research team. And after the outline of key results, we are going to have a panel discussion with the wonderful Maya Mansfield, Sarah Alexander, Adrienne Nunes, and Josie Holberg, who are able to be with us today for a productive panel discussion. So before I continue, I would like to leave the floor to Rob De Conto. Is Rob here with us? I think there might be a technical problem. Rob didn't, maybe was unable to join us on Zoom. We're gonna find a space for Rob when he's able to join us in a few minutes. Let me just present very briefly our panelist. Maya Mansfield is Assistant Secretary for Resilience at the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Welcome, Maya. Sarah Alexander, who's going to join us in a little bit. She's the Director of Resilience and Finance at the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And then Adrienne Nunes and Josie Holberg, who are Senior Legislative Analysts at the MMA, at the Massachusetts Municipal Association. Welcome to all of them. We're going to have time to discuss in a little bit with them. And before the panel, we are going to give you now a glimpse to our results. Next slide, please. I should frame a little bit this project. This is the third of multiple rounds of surveys that we have implemented in Massachusetts since 2021. This project is also at the intersection of an international collaboration with the University of Costa Rica, the United Nations University, and University of Glasgow. In that large transatlantic project, we looked at green economic development and resilience. A little introduction about myself. I'm an assistant professor of economics and public policy at the University of Massachusetts and at the London School of Economics. Next slide, please. I would like to acknowledge the funding agencies that supported this initiative, and in particular, for us in the US, the National Science Foundation. Next slide, please. And I would also like to mention all the partnering organizations that supported this very large project. As you can see, this is a major coordination effort at the transatlantic level. And for us in Massachusetts, we received support from the beginning from the Massachusetts Municipal Association, the ICMA, but at a larger scale, we also received support from the United Nations Environment Program and the Ministry of Environment and Energy in Costa Rica and several agencies in Scotland. Next slide, please. For this survey, I cannot thank enough the Massachusetts Municipal Association for helping us review the survey and disseminate the survey to all Massachusetts municipalities, and also the wonderful staff of the EEA, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, who reviewed the survey and provided questions for the survey so that they could collect useful data to design informed policies. Also, last but not least, I would like to thank all Massachusetts regional planning agencies that either reviewed the survey, provided feedback on questions, and or disseminated the survey to their member municipalities. Next slide, please. This is just an acknowledgement of the international research team. I'm not going to mention all of them, but I appreciate immensely their support in the past 5 years throughout this entire project. Next slide, please. There is a lot of thanks that we have to share. And this is our wonderful research team. And I would like to highlight that this research team includes students from multiple institutions in Massachusetts, the University of Massachusetts Amherst, but also Mount Holyoke College, Amherst College, and Smith College. So thank you to our wonderful research fellows that you are going to hear from throughout the presentation while sharing qualitative data. Next slide, please. So without further ado, let's jump in the data. Next slide, please. We're going to look at results related to green economic development opportunities. We collected data on opportunities for energy transition. We collected data on areas of interest for municipalities in relation to the Mass Ready Act. We explored the impacts of rising costs of materials and labor. And last but not least, we started exploring enabling factors to accelerate the green economic development in the state. Next slide, thank you. Just a glimpse to our respondents. Next slide. We received data from 122 municipalities. We received responses for many more respondents, but essentially 122 are the municipalities represented in the sample. We will add to this presentation before sharing it with everybody, and also I would like to let you know, we will share the materials and we will also disseminate a policy brief with the results of the survey. I would like to mention that we are going to keep the survey open after this event in case other municipalities want to share and provide information and provide feedback. We have a good representation from Eastern and Western Massachusetts. And next slide. And you can see from this table, on the left-hand side, you have percentages and demographic characteristics for Massachusetts. And on the right-hand side, in the column sample in this study, you see the percentages and demographic characteristics of municipalities in the sample. And just to summarize it for you, because of time, we have a sample that is quite representative of the state, and we have a good representation of coastal municipalities, 30% of our respondents are municipalities versus the 22% of coastal municipalities that are present in Massachusetts. So we are happy in terms also of representation along the coast. In terms of per capita income, population size, and level of education, our sample is more or less comparable to Massachusetts. So we are confident in terms of the representativeness of the data. Next slide, please. So we start with green economic development opportunities. Thank you. Just a very quick glimpse to the results. We asked, has your municipality or planning agency invested in any of the following economic growth strategies? And the strategies that emerged at the top are consideration or prioritization of environmental concerns in policymaking and administration, decarbonization, inclusion of vulnerable groups, investment in clean and renewable energy. And working with nature can be associated with nature-based solutions. These are the topics that emerged. I want to clarify something about the legend, which is a legend that you're going to see repeated in multiple graphics after this slide. So dark blue here represents yes, and this initiative started before the pandemic. And lighter blue indicates yes, and this initiative started after the pandemic. We were interested in understanding whether there was a push after the pandemic in terms of green economic development. I think what emerges from this entire survey is that Massachusetts municipalities are really A students in terms of effort and investment and interest in exploring green economic growth strategies. Something also that emerges is that green finance is less developed, and maybe that's an interesting opportunity to explore at the state level. For the development of future projects. Next slide, please. We asked, after asking in what municipalities invested, we also asked what strategies are the most important to municipalities. And in terms of the importance, here dark blue means very important. The most important emerging strategies are prioritization of green infrastructure in infrastructural projects, working with nature, which again is connected with nature-based solutions. And I know that in our audience, there are numerous participants interested in nature-based solutions. So if you're interested in this, I will share with you additional resources at the end of this presentation with links to publications with evidence on cost effectiveness of nature-based infrastructure. We have then inclusion of vulnerable and marginalized groups and increased investments in clean and renewable energy. Next slide. This slide is about coastal communities, and we have another slide on most sectors that have the greatest potential for growth, also for inland communities. So when you look at this slide, and the question was, what are the sectors that have the greatest potential for growth? The sectors that were listed by coastal communities are primarily tourism, hospitality, and recreation. So these are sectors of high importance in dark blue. Marine, aquaculture, and fisheries, green infrastructure development and maintenance. Essentially, you see that the blue economy and climate adaptation emerge as economic development strategies for the state. So adaptation, resilience are not just strategies to increase protection, but are also potentially strategies to boost or accelerate economic development. Next slide, please. For inland municipalities, the sectors that have the greatest potential according to our municipal respondents include utilities, renewable energy, administrative professional services. Green infrastructure emerges as well, together with the opportunities for key workforce development opportunities. Yeah. Next slide. So in this survey, we included a few questions about energy programs, and in particular, the community choice energy aggregation programs. I can let you know that we are going to have another event in the fall focused entirely on these programs and opportunities for energy transition. But we wanted to give you still a glimpse to the results. In this set of slides, Marina, there is going to be a couple of slides that we can skip, and they are the slides with the purple dot. They are just a little bit too detailed for the scope of this event, but we are going to give you an overview of the current results. Next slide, please. So community choice energy aggregation programs are programs that allow municipalities to purchase energy as a collective. And here we wanted to understand the extent and the benefits of community choice energy aggregation programs. In enrolling in starting a CCA program, municipalities can select the amount of renewable energy that they wish to procure. In our sample, there is a very large percentage of municipalities that are already operating a CCA program, and a subset of these municipalities include municipalities in the Cape Light Compact. We will provide a little bit more detail about this in our policy brief. Next slide, please. I wanted to highlight the benefits that were reported by communities. Municipalities reported overall very strong level of satisfaction with these CCA programs, and benefits include more stable energy prices. And you see here in dark blue means agree, so more stable energy prices reported by 75% of municipalities. 69% of municipalities reported lower energy prices. Level of satisfaction is more than 60% indicated positive level of satisfaction. And then important, I think, in terms of opportunities for energy transition is that 49% of respondents indicated that the CCE allowed them to purchase more renewable energy. In an upcoming study that our team at UMass is developing, we examine the potential for savings in parallel with an increase in renewable energy procurement. So if you're interested, stay in touch. We will send you updates after the event. Next slide. Some municipalities in our sample are not part of the CCE program, and we asked what factors might explain it. The most commonly cited barriers include lack of technical expertise and potentially municipalities are understaffed and unable to explore the complexities of the application or implementation of CCE programs. But they are relatively easy to start, except maybe for administrative protocols. And so maybe this is an area where there are opportunities for expansion of these programs by supporting municipalities with lower staffing capacity in an effort to increase renewable energy procurement in the state. Next slide, please. This is an observation that emerged in asking the amount of renewable energy that municipalities are procuring. And so essentially we asked which of the following best describes your municipality's approach to the share of Class 1 renewable energy in your contract. This is a simplified version of the question. And a significant share of municipalities indicated that they are already exceeding the Massachusetts requirement for renewable energy. And there is a sizable amount of municipalities indicating that they are also considering expanding their renewable energy procurement beyond the Massachusetts requirements, even if they're already exceeding the Massachusetts requirements. So these are all very good signs in terms of the efforts that municipalities are showing towards energy transition. Next slide, please. A quick overview of responses related to the Mass Ready Act. As you can see, this is a very quick, speedy overview of the survey, but we can come back to the slides with our panel to discuss specific slides later if there is need to do that. So let's jump into the slides here. In June 24, 2025, Governor Healy filed the Mass Ready Act. The goal was to strengthen and protect Massachusetts communities. So we asked our municipalities and planning region, this legislation proposes investments and reforms across multiple areas of climate resilience, infrastructure, and economic recovery. Which areas are the most interesting and important to you? And we found that in terms of extremely important or extremely interested, and those are marked in dark blue, the areas most frequently cited include expansion of the Massachusetts Vulnerability Preparedness program, and we are very lucky to have Maya and Sarah with us today to discuss that. We also can list regional equity and rural investments as extremely important areas for our respondents. Again, investments to enhance outdoor recreation infrastructure and preserve historic sites. There is also reference to reducing pollution of public supplies and private wells and disposal sites. These are just some of the responses, but this is just the top ones. But as you can see, overall, at a glance, the level of interest is high on many of these. So the legislation is really spot on, and we just wanted to understand what are the areas of strongest potential. So next slide, please. This is just a quick summary of what we just presented. And I would like to just highlight one point. There is overall in Massachusetts broad support for numerous programs. And this also highlights the opportunities for integration between resilience investments, environmental infrastructure, general investments in sustainable infrastructure, and green economic development. So Massachusetts seems to be on the right path in terms of level of interest and engagement. Next slide, please. This is an important slide related to financing, and we are really lucky to have Sarah Alexander with us today. Probably we're going to come back to this slide later. And this was a slide designed in partnership with the EEA to better understand how to support municipalities. And so we asked municipalities to share their thoughts about a resilience, the proposed resilience-focused revolving loan fund. So the fund would provide low-interest loans for climate resilience projects, such as culvert replacements, dam removal, green infrastructure, cooling centers, or floodplains. And so we essentially asked what characteristics of this revolving fund would be most important to municipal respondents. And dark blue here again means very important. And you see at the top, in terms of characteristics, they wish that loans have no or low interest rates, making them more affordable to borrowers. This was indicated by more than 80% of municipalities. Again, more than 80% of municipalities indicated as a preference that loan amounts are sufficient to cover most project costs. And then after this, you see on the left-hand side, another important characteristics is that there are few requirements for additional funding or collateral. I think when you look at the general picture here, it's clear that our municipalities are ambitious because they are looking at long-term projects, large projects, and this is an interesting and positive sign in terms of long-term planning for resilience, but also economic development regionally. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary of what I just said. We can move to the next slide. We asked municipalities which of the following green finance tools or mechanisms would be most helpful to your community or planning region to support climate resilience and green economic development projects. In this slide, dark blue means that municipalities are not using the tool, but they would be very interested. They would find it very helpful. Lighter blue indicates not in use, but somewhat helpful. Teal means not in use and not relevant. And then pink means that it's already in use. At the top, we find state and federal funds, followed by, just below, green bank financing, and then resilience bonds and revolving loan funds. While historically there's been strong reliance on state and federal grants, what is interesting and emerging from this slide is that municipalities are looking at alternative tools and are interested in green bank and financing, or resilience bonds and revolving loan funds. There is also, if you look in more detail into the results, you see also opportunities for regional or cooperative financing. So there is an interesting ecosystem of financing tools that could be further developed in Massachusetts, and there is interest on the municipal side. And we can maybe discuss this more with Sarah Alexander, who I believe just joined us. Great. So we can now move to the next slide. When we did the focus groups with municipalities, we learned about the challenges that they are facing with the increasing costs. In the next slide, we summarize the outcomes. Next slide, thank you. We summarize the outcomes of the question investigating the impacts of this cost. So to what extent have rising costs impacted infrastructure and development planning in your municipality or planning region? 51% of municipalities indicated that rising cost of construction and material supplies have already generated very significant impacts. And this can translate in major project delays, cancellations. 34% of respondents indicated the significant impacts, meaning some delays and cost increases. Overall, if you look at this, more than 80% of municipalities have already experienced significant to very significant impacts, which means that these costs can be debilitating or interfere significantly with the operations at the municipal level. In terms of rising labor costs and reduced availability of skilled workers, those are also emerging as issues and concerns. And about 80% of municipalities, again, reported that these rising costs are having significant to very significant impacts, such as cancellation of project and delays. Next slide, please. So thinking positively about what can we do? We started exploring enabling factors to accelerate green economic development in Massachusetts. Next slide. And we asked municipalities, thinking about green economic development and climate resilience project, what types of state support would be most helpful for the successful implementation of these programs and projects? More than 90% of municipalities indicated funding for project implementation, and about 90% funding for project design and planning. This was an interesting and important result for us because planning seems to be an area that requires funds and it's challenging for numerous respondents. Technical assistance emerges in third position with 62% of municipalities indicating that this is extremely helpful and would be a high priority for them. You can see that technical assistance, both in design and planning and implementation, appear to be needed. And also streamlining permitting and approval processes. And these are things that we can discuss together in the panel and in the Q&A. From a university standpoint, it's interesting for us to identify also opportunities where the universities can step in and assist. And I can tell you that the UMass system, and there are many of my colleagues here today who are working on this front, the UMass system is thinking about ways to assist municipalities, planning agencies, and state agencies in accelerating green economic transformation and support well-being of Massachusetts communities. And so in the next slide, we asked what kind of support from the university system would be most helpful to your municipality. And dark blue here, extremely high importance. We have support with grant writing and securing funding. This really stood out in relation to small communities that maybe rely a lot on volunteer work. The second item that emerged as high importance and extremely high importance is the facilitation of regional coordination between municipalities, agencies, and businesses. This is something that these results are results that we are looking at very carefully as we are planning the next steps to create a platform to support our Massachusetts partners and stakeholders. So it's really helpful for us to know. The third item is best practices and toolkits and case studies on sustainable economic growth and resilience, and templates and technical guidance. So these are areas where universities can help with training, so materials, tools, toolkits, and support for workforce development, which is an element that has been emerging as important to accelerate this economic transformation. So next slide, please. Now, very briefly, we're going to go through some of the key themes that have emerged throughout everything that I've presented so far. I know it was a lot and it was fast, and I have an accent, so I apologize for that. But now we're going to try to summarize the results that I have outlined so far. And we're going to also rely on qualitative data that we collected in parallel with the quantitative data. And my research assistants, my research fellows here will summarize some of these key themes in the next few slides, and then we're going to conclude and transition to the panel. So I'm going to transition now to Marina. Thank you, Marina.
Hi, everyone. So first, we will look at municipal voices focusing on capacity and workforce opportunities. Many municipalities reported that green growth initiatives are already creating new workforce and economic opportunities across Massachusetts. At the same time, respondents highlighted increasing demand for technical skills and long-term implementation capacity, especially in areas like electrification, heat pumps, and clean energy infrastructure. These responses suggest strong opportunities for workforce development partnerships between municipalities, educational institutions, and state agencies. In this and in the following slides, the selected quotes highlighted in yellow represent recurring themes, particularly insightful observations or examples that helped us inform our broader analysis. We will now look into opportunities to accelerate the energy transition with my colleague Nathaniel.
The municipalities with community choice aggregation programs describe very positive local outcomes, including lower energy costs, price stability, and increased renewable energy demand and procurement. And this is leading to strong community support for these programs. So how can we expand such a successful program? Several respondents emphasized the importance of improving communication of benefits and basic technical support. And the goal is for smaller or under-resourced communities to more easily identify the benefits of these programs and participate in these programs. Overall, the survey suggests strong momentum for expanding local clean energy initiatives. And in the next slide, my colleague Jihang will highlight how Massachusetts regional diversity creates distinct opportunities for economic growth and workforce development.
The regional economic differences in Massachusetts are a major strength to create green economic growth opportunities. Municipalities identified distinct local strengths, including offshore wind, tourism, marine industry, agriculture, and climate innovation. These responses suggest that place-based strategies and regional cooperation could help support long-term economic diversification, economic growth, and resilience across the state. Now we're going to look into opportunities for leadership and regional cooperation with my colleague Uttara.
Many municipalities are already piloting innovative resilience and sustainability strategies. Massachusetts municipalities are generous. Numerous respondents already expressed strong interest in sharing successful approaches with other communities. Respondents also emphasized the importance of regional coordination, especially for smaller towns with limited staff and technical capacity. Overall, the survey highlights significant opportunities to scale local innovation through collaboration and knowledge sharing. In the final qualitative slide, my colleague Anushka will discuss practical opportunities for collaboration and support identified by municipalities.
Many municipalities indicated that they are ready to accelerate resilience and green economic development efforts, but need practical implementation support. Respondents frequently identify technical assistance, workforce training, grant support, student partnerships, and regional coordination as high impact opportunities. These responses also point to an important role for universities and regional partnerships in helping communities scale existing efforts. I'll now turn the presentation back to Professor Vicarelli.
Great, thank you. So just to summarize, what we have seen so far is that Massachusetts is really well positioned. It has strong foundations for resilience and green economic growth. First of all, municipalities are already taking action. They're working really hard. We have been really super impressed, and we continue being super impressed by how much municipalities work to secure funds, to develop projects. There is strong interest in resilience, clean energy, and workforce development. Municipalities are really forward-looking, and they are very ambitious. There are existing examples of leadership that can be scaled and replicated. Something that emerged just a couple of slides ago is the level of generosity of municipalities that would like to help other municipalities accelerate their programs. So this is maybe something that our university can do to help municipalities connect and accelerate programs through capacity sharing. Regional diversity is a strength. We found that the regional diversity in the answers from the survey, qualitative and quantitative, regional diversity can create diversified opportunities for economic growth, which makes Massachusetts a really strong player in terms of green economic development. Some municipalities indicated the need or their ambition to become climate tech hubs. So there is great potential in terms of the vision and the resources available. So we're not starting from zero, and we just need to find ways to scale up and support municipalities that need support. And there is willingness to share resources, so this is a great starting point. Next slide. So high impact opportunities that we have identified through our wonderful municipal respondents. Technical assistance, so our university can, and maybe state agencies can also help municipalities navigate programs, grants, and implementation, but I think this is something that also university system could do. Workforce development is an area that would definitely accelerate the economic development related to the sectors with highest potential that we have discussed so far during the presentation. So this would support training pipelines in energy, infrastructure, resilience sectors. So workforce development programs might be very beneficial. And regional collaboration has, and as it has been discussed already, to leverage planning work, municipal networks, and capacity sharing, as we said. And last but not least, innovative finance opportunities, and maybe we can explore this a little bit more with our panelists to expand financing tools beyond competitive grants, which might actually be declining in the current political environment. Next slide, please. I'm going to stop here. This is a QR code for additional resources. We are going to come to this slide at the very end of the event so that you can take a screenshot, and I will let you know what additional resources you may find on that webpage. But we can stop now and open up for our panelists. I would like to introduce them again. Thank you so much for being here with us. We have today Maya Mansfield, Assistant Secretary for Resilience at the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Sarah Alexander, Director of Resilience and Finance at the EEA, Adrian Nunes and Josie Olberg, Senior Legislative Analyst at the Massachusetts Municipal Association. I believe, if our panelists allow, I believe that Rob DeConto is also here with us. Maybe, Rob, you can share a few words before we move into the discussion with our panelists.
Thank you, Marta, and I'm sorry I joined a few minutes late. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for being here today. I especially want to thank our panelists for being here. Maya Mansfield, Assistant Secretary for Resilience at EEA. Adrian Nunes, who I don't think I've met. Josie Alberg, Senior Legislative Analyst at the MMA. We're grateful for your perspectives on all of this. This is a chance for me, Marta, to thank you. You know, Marta has been the driving force behind this lecture series, and you've really built this into such a valuable forum. While the series is supported mainly by the School of Earth and Sustainability, it really reflects a broader commitment to working more collaboratively across the UMass system of campuses. And I think today's event is just a great example of that. You, Marta, really have brought together scholars, students, partners. You're connecting research, education, policy, practice, and support of sustainable solutions. And that's really just exactly what the School of Earth and Sustainability is really all about. So the types of challenges, that you've introduced today that are being perceived by the residents across the Commonwealth, climate resilience, municipal capacity, as we saw, is really important. Sustainable development, of course, economic growth. All of this doesn't fit neatly into just one discipline or sector. It requires exactly the kind of collaboration that this event, I think, really exemplifies. We have a long history of working, with Mia's team at EEA. We've provided science support to inform the climate resilience goals of the initiatives like Resilient Mass and Resilient Coasts. Marta's work, obviously, with the Massachusetts Municipal Association and the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, have really identified the challenges that are most important to our communities. So I'm really thrilled to be here. Those were some of the thoughts that I had prepared to kick things off with an 11 a.m. time stuck in my calendar and in my head. But I'm really glad I'm here for the panel, and I'm looking forward to actually chiming in as the discussion continues. So thanks. I'll turn it back to all of you.
Thank you very much, Rob. I believe Maya has prepared a couple of slides. Would you like to share them with us, Maya, and then we can discuss together?
Absolutely. Should I share my screen, Marta?
Yeah.
1 second. Well, as I find the right tab, just wanted to thank you so much for including me today and for having this conversation. It is a topic that we are thinking about and working on every day at the at EEA, and so a lot here that we want to share and get your feedback and continue this work, since this is sort of long game work for sure. Okay. All right. Look good?
No.
All right. Awesome. So again, hi, I'm Maya Mansfield, the Assistant Secretary for Resilience at EEA. I'm joined by my colleague, Sarah Alexander, who's our Director of Resilience and Finance. I'll be going through the slides, but Sarah will be here to help field questions and share more about all of the amazing work that she is leading as well. And much of this work is the result of a much broader team that we are very proud to represent. So as you all know, climate impacts are here and are being experienced in Massachusetts. And as Professor Tacanto said, there's a wonderful team from UMass Amherst that's helping to lead our first ever statewide climate science report, which is really mapping out the trends that we should expect over the coming decades and the best available science that's out there, and identifying the gaps that still exist. And so we have a lot of the research in this space. We know that these impacts are coming at sometimes an accelerated rate in this region than other parts of the world even. And we're very proud of our Office of Climate Science and our Climate Science Advisory Panel from across the region that's helping to map out these changes and make sure that we're working from the best available and most recent science. As you also are probably well aware, Massachusetts is pretty unique in terms of its governance structure, with these 351 small municipalities that all operate pretty independently and without a strong county governance system. And so with the challenge of this sort of structure, plus the aging infrastructure that we have in our state, plus the impacts that we are already facing, we see that the challenge, there's a mismatch here between the scale of the challenge and the regional scale, and then the very local sort of framework that we have for taking action and for funding. So this is our science to action framework at the state of Massachusetts. It's called Resilient Mass. It is our whole of government sort of interagency effort to develop and implement these plans. There's sort of a three steps here to move from science to action. We have our statewide climate science report, which we are releasing for the first time later this year, and which the team is working on right now to really understand and analyze the risk. Then we move into our statewide climate change assessment, which is where we prioritize the impacts and understand where the risks are greatest across the state to different communities, vulnerable communities, infrastructure, ecosystems, and the economy, and understand where we should really be focused on looking ahead. Out of that assessment, we've developed a suite of resiliency metrics to help best articulate these very specific goals. Since resiliency covers so many different topic areas and goals, how do we make sure we're articulating those goals clearly, where we want to go, and the specific indicators that will help us move the needle and track how we get closer to those goals. So those metrics track back to the top impacts that track back to the science. And then our Resilient Mass Plan, which is our statewide agency action plan of where agencies are going to be focused over the next 5 years. And we do this cycle every 5 years, and it's underway right now. We also know has been stated in the presentation and in this really incredible research that municipalities are ready to act and very active participants in this challenge and in this space. The requests that we get for funding for resiliency planning and implementation far exceeds our available capital budgets by around 7 times at this point, and that is increasing every year. Our MVP, Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness program that my team manages, which reaches the entire state, has awarded over $200 million to date. But again, this sort of does not meet the need that we're seeing. And this program is really still too competitive for what we want it to be. We wish we could fund so many more great projects. And this year, I'll tell you a little bit more in a few slides about how we're trying to do that better. So this is really summarizes a lot of what the research has shown to date, and just emphasizing that we hear these challenges, we see them as well, and we are working to identify interventions and strategies in order to address them, but that projects are not matching the scale of climate risk because while we're funding at the local level, the scale is regional. That projects are struggling to move from planning to implementation. How do we get all these great ideas off the ground and funded and implemented and scaled? And then the challenge of capacity in terms of staff, in terms of technical assistance, in terms of knowledge on best practices, sort of a range of issues in that space. And of course, how small and under-resourced towns are facing some of the greatest barriers. Despite these barriers, we know that these resiliency investments are essential, not only in terms of the losses avoided, but on consistently delivering strong returns. And we see these numbers in the research, both at the local and the national level, and how these projects are cost effective, and they are directly tied to sustainable development, to community safety, to ensuring business continuity of operations, things that we can measure and things that we can't, but that we know that are so critical. And so in the last year, we released the Resilient Mass Finance Strategy, which you can find online, which summarizes our sort of current and best thinking around what is the scale of this challenge, where does the state really need to make investments over time on what specific types of work, and then how are we going to scale some of the resources that we have at the state level, at least, to better meet this challenge. And so these 4 goals are really how we are organizing a lot of our work moving forward in terms of making projects easier to implement, streamlining and expanding funding access, implementing finance mechanism, and building regional and organizational capacity. So again, a lot of the themes that you're speaking to, we are also working to organize around. So here are those 4 themes. Again, you can read a lot more in the report, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how we're advancing each one. In the report, you can also find some specific project ideas across different phases, and then metrics for how do we know that we're ready to move from one phase to the next. We're in phase 1 right now. I also wanted to speak a little bit about the Mass Ready Act, which is also part of the research and which was so exciting to see all those findings, because this is really our major legislative move right now in order to achieve the level of authorizations for investments and the type of investments and finance mechanisms that will be needed to help get us closer to where we want to be over the coming years. So the Mass Ready Act is an environmental bond bill, which means something that we have to file every 5 years or so to maintain the existing authorizations for state agencies, for the EEA state agencies. But it's also an opportunity to really expand our work and to identify policy solutions and policy strategies that we need authorization and legislative support for to move forward. Here's Governor Healy and the team at EEA, Secretary Tepper, Undersecretary Catherine Antas in green, the Lieutenant Governor, and on her side, Undersecretary Stephanie Cooper. So this is really our incredible leadership team that's working to move all of this forward at the highest levels. And this legislation is moving through the legislature at this time, and we hope that it will be passed in the coming months. And if you like what you hear and you see as important, it's really important to reach out and speak with your legislators about it. So back to those 4 priorities in the finance strategy. So just a little bit about what we're doing to advance those. So in terms of making projects easier to implement, here we are focused on making information more accessible around what is a resiliency project, how do you do them, and what is competitive work for state funding. We don't want towns to feel like they have to reinvent this wheel on their own 351 times over. And so we've worked with MAPC to develop the Climate Resiliency Playbook. We already have a team underway to further build out that playbook in a 2.0 version to really lay out some of the best practices and examples of this work across the state. Sarah is also leading an effort to incorporate resiliency into specific technical design standards for different types of critical infrastructure projects. So again, this information is already existing. Towns can build off of it. They can just take it and incorporate it into their work. And so not only are we developing specific resiliency projects, but we're incorporating these standards and this way of thinking about making sure our infrastructure is built to last into everything that we are investing in. And in Mass Ready, there's elements around permit streamlining to move projects through the system faster, and adding more expertise into the state authorities around the building code so that we ensure that we are building with resilience in mind from the very beginning, rather than needing to go back and retrofit and fix things. In terms of expanding and simplifying access to funding, at EEA, we released for the first time this year, the Environment and Climate One Stop, which is a streamlined sort of common application for 7 different resiliency grant programs at EEA that we hope will continue to build out more and more each year. And that was inspired by the Community One Stop out of the Economic Development Secretariat. The Eco One Stop was a big success in a lot of ways in its first round, in that most of the programs broke their records for most applications received by up to 50%. We got hundreds of applications from across the state, and we're able to review those in a coordinated way across programs so that we could best use our resources to fund the best projects. And Mass Ready will expand funding for a majority of these grant programs. Unlocking capital to scale resiliency investment. This is something Sarah can talk a little bit more about in the Q&A, but Mass Ready is proposes to establish, needs to pass, a resiliency revolving fund to provide those low interest loans to eligible applicants in order to be able to fund those projects that are bigger than what grant programs can handle, and also don't make sense to go through grant programs, and that would allow us to use our grant dollars to fund those planning and design projects and move that work and the thinking forward. And then when certain projects get to that construction to implementation phase, they can move over to the loan fund and get that support to move forward. And I'll leave this for Sarah to cover, just I think I'm probably going too long. But we're learning about resiliency revolving funds from several other states, and we're excited to launch one here in Massachusetts, hopefully. And lastly, this issue of building regional organizational capacity to deliver, which is really the underlying need across all of this work. How do we have the capacity across the state and at the regional level to identify and move forward these types of critically regional projects that are going to benefit many towns, many communities across the state? So to that goal, we have the Resilient Coasts effort, which is really looking at districts across the coast that have similar challenges and geographies, and recommending specific coastal resiliency solutions within those districts, and supporting them to work together to identify solutions, and proposing through Mass Ready to do the same thing in the Connecticut River Valley, which is an area that sees a lot of riverine flood risk. Through Mass Ready, we're also working to expand eligibility for our grant programs even out to community-based organizations beyond municipalities and regional planning authorities, because we know so much of this work needs to happen at the community level and in partnership with community groups, and they need to be resourced in order to take part as well. So that is where I will stop. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And thank you again so much for including us and for all of the important work that you're doing across the state to move all of this forward. There's so many different pieces of the puzzle. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, Maya. I think it was really wonderful to see how in many of your slides were just answers to some of the needs that were highlighted in the survey. I think it was a perfect contrapunto, if we can use musical terms. I would like to open up for discussion and question and answers. For our audience members, you can add your questions to the chat. You can raise your hand. Initially, we would like to ask a couple of opening questions to the panel, and then we are going to open up to broader discussion. I wanted to mention that all the resources that are listed in the chat will also be available on the website of the event, after event. And I would like to also mention that all the resources related to internship opportunities, research opportunities, I know my colleague Nathaniel already helpfully shared some of these resources. We will add them to the website in case municipal officials or planning agency officials are interested in reaching out, and we can connect you with the relevant partners. So to start with the possible discussion points with our panelists, what we have been learning so far from the data, from your work, is that municipalities seem to be strongly committed to resilience and sustainability in Massachusetts. They report also challenges related to staffing, technical capacity, and long-term funding. Maya has already addressed in her presentation multiple ways in which support can be provided. If you could summarize or highlight some of the important points that you made, or additional points that you would like to share from your perspective, what kind of support or partnerships would be most helpful needed to help municipalities move from planning to implementation? And this is an open question to Maya and Sarah, but also Josie and Adrienne. Thank you.
Yeah, I already spoke, so I'll be quick and let Josie and Adrienne and Sarah jump in. But I think, yeah, as we sort of talked about in the finance strategy, I think there's sort of an inevitable component around funding and increasing funding. But then these other pieces around the staff capacity, around the technical assistance, around the sort of support to move things every step along the way. But then kind of on the state side, the streamlining and making sure that burden of figuring out exactly how to move forward and from where and sort of all the steps can be further streamlined and supported.
Thank you. Josie or Adrienne?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll just chime in and say good morning. I'm Josie Alberg. It's so nice to be with you. Marta, Rob, and the whole UMass team, thank you so much for having us and for doing this work that got us to this point, right? This is an exciting celebration of all of the hard work that's gone into the survey, and thanks so much to everyone for logging on and for nerding out with all of us. I think it's a really exciting and rewarding time to be talking about this, and I think to answer your question, Marta, a big piece of this is funding, right? And I think the survey results show that, right? 93% of respondents saying that funding for project implementation is extremely helpful. And we know that that's what we're hearing from our membership. And if you don't know the MMA and the Massachusetts Municipal Association, we represent all 351 cities and towns with membership and legislative services and a whole lot more. But we're really privileged from our perspective to be in conversation with cities and towns frequently. And we know that grant programs are really key for them to address climate change. We know that that is incredibly helpful. And that's why we're really excited as municipalities lobbyists in Massachusetts to be following the environmental bond bill and especially the funding for the MVP program. I can't underscore enough how grateful we are to have a state that provides that kind of service and support for cities and towns. And just to put into context the funding that we're talking about, right? Last time we did one of these big environmental bond bills was back in 2018. And that was a $2.4 billion bond bill back then, and the funding authorization for MVP was $75 million. And in the latest version of the current environmental bond bill, we're seeing that authorization be proposed at $500 million. That's a lot of money. And that would go really far to support not only the planning process, because that's part of the MVP program as well, but also implementation funding. And so from a municipal perspective, I'm sure the city and town folks on this call know about the MVP program, but we're just really excited to see that. And I think any, advocacy and shout outs that you all can do in your capacities as folks on this call and in giving thanks and appreciation for funding for climate programs. I know Maya and Sarah are probably they're sick of us hearing us cheer on the MVP program so much, but it really is that flagship program that we're excited to see. And I know that beyond climate resilience funding, the pot of money that cities and towns have to address climate change on their own is really limited. So I know Adrienne, as our fiscal policy expert on the team, has a lot more to say on this, so I'll let her expand on that.
Thanks so much, Josie. Yeah, so I'm Adrienne Nunez. I'm a senior legislative analyst here at the MMA alongside Josie. We're two of a 6-member team that are here to help elevate the voice of municipalities on Beacon Hill and beyond. And so we care very deeply about all of these issues, and Josie takes the lead on all of this, everything resilience, and happy to be here with her to have this conversation. Expanding a little bit on what Josie's already said, we do know that municipalities have extremely limited resources on the ground. And it's probably, not a new idea to everyone that's on this call today, but I did want to underscore that just a little bit and highlight for folks, if you haven't already seen some of our recent reports, we did at the end of last year work together with the Center for State Policy Analysis at Tufts University to put together 2 reports, The Perfect Storm and Navigating the Storm. They are on our website. I think Josie might be looking for the link right now, but we can put it in the chat. But what we found, and it was really just a formal way to capture what we're seeing across the Commonwealth, is that municipalities are confronting compounding cost and revenue pressures across the state. Cities and towns, of course, are faced with tightly capped property tax limits, which are, of course, our main source of revenue. As well, inflation has really outpaced growth, and discretionary state aid has not recovered from some reductions that we've seen way back in 2008 from the Great Recession. So that's just a little bit of a highlight of where we're at. But what we see is a picture of some struggle and some real fiscal challenges that we're seeing really in across nearly all communities right now in this moment. So when communities are struggling to meet their everyday needs and just maintain core services, it is incredibly difficult to gain the momentum to take on what can be these really costly capital projects that we're talking about today. I know that resilience projects really do run a pretty wide spectrum, but some of them really can be quite costly. So just want to put that out there. That funding piece is really, really critical, and we continue to hear that from our communities. Aside from that, do want to express some appreciation, of course, to the EEA and for the team here at UMass for putting together this survey. Getting this feedback directly from our members is critical, right? So we know that, the slide with, the list of needs, like what are the priorities? It's so great to have that in a really tangible forum and say, hey, here's the data. This is what's needed to get these things done. It's critical to connect directly with municipal officials on the ground who are closest to our residents, closest to our natural environments, really know what's going on and are really our frontline environmental stewards and doing all this work and critical to the success of these initiatives. I'll leave it at that. Marta, I'm not sure what's next.
Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you, Adrienne. Maybe Sarah would like to chime in and share some thoughts, particularly on the financing side. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I think the other panelists really captured it well. But yeah, we know that funding and financing continues to be a big need across the state in terms of helping scale resilience implementation, as Maya spoke to in our strategy. That's one of the things we're thinking a lot about at EEA, and hopeful we'll be able to stand up this resilience revolving loan fund, which will be able to provide, really a revolving pot of capital to be able to support, especially on probably the construction and implementation side of these projects. And, just this information is really helpful in terms of thinking about how we can, be providing the technical assistance to, pull projects together and create a project pipeline. And then, think about on the state side how we can offer a suite of, grants and then also hopefully loans to be able to address some of those financing challenges.
We don't have so much time, and it's almost 45. But if you have some closing remarks or reasons for optimism, any thought you would like to share in concluding our session today?
I'm happy to kick it off and then send it to others. I think, this conversation is just one example of how much we need to talk and learn from each other about this topic. I can say from my seat at local government staff and officials and the volunteers serving on the countless boards and commissions that make up local government in Massachusetts, they make me optimistic. There are the right people who are working on these really important topics. And I think, within that context, where you live is really foundational to your experience. And a core question, no matter where you live, is really, am I safe? Do I feel like I can plant roots here and make Massachusetts, as one example, a great place to live and to work? And cities and towns have really taken on that responsibility in a lot of different ways over, hundreds of years of local government in Massachusetts, and thinking about police and fire, emergency response, and climate change is kind of one of these newer topics that we're wrestling with, of how we can provide safety to residents and to visitors in a bunch of different ways, thinking about coastal flooding, about severe weather. There's so many different facets that local governments are really taking this fight on and trying to think through, for my individual community, what does safety look like for our residents? So it makes me optimistic to know that this work is happening, and to have as well really receptive and committed state government who are absolute partners in this work, and to have especially the companionship and friendship with UMass Amherst and the various different organizations and agencies that are helping us to do this. We can't do it alone, and we're really grateful for just the support and collaboration that we have in making this possible, and for cheering on the successes that we've been able to celebrate so far. It makes our job easier to know that folks like you all on this call are here to have these conversations and to make progress in ways that make sense for all of our 351 different constellations of local government life here in Massachusetts. So that's what makes me optimistic.
Thank you, Josie.
I'll just echo Josie's, all of that optimism and inspiration really from seeing municipal officials and the collaboration. Also, just want to throw in there a little appreciation for our legislature, right? So that environmental bond bill hasn't made it completely through the legislative process, but we are seeing so much support for it. And there's a real recognition, of course, across, many, many years here in Massachusetts that our legislature is prioritizing the environmental needs and climate needs across the Commonwealth. And that continues to this day, despite changes in federal policy and overall kind of shifts in economic conditions. That still remains a priority. So feels really good to be a part of that. And that's definitely something that keeps us going and gives us a little fuel to help that along.
Thank you, Adrienne. Rob?
Yeah, I just have a broad question, and Maya probably has a whole slide deck just on this topic, but I'm wondering how insurance and the insurance industry is being sort of weaved into the resilience finance. And, as you know, it's one of the first places where climate risk begins to show up in terms of economic impact. Places on the Cape are becoming less insurable. How does insurance fit into all of this?
I just want to be mindful of the fact that we are supposed to finish at 11:45. But if Maya and Sarah and our panelists are willing to wait a few more minutes, answer the question, and maybe offer some concluding remarks, it's up to you, though. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Just real quick on my optimism thing. I just wanted to add that while this topic is sort of a doom and gloom umbrella topic, I think the solutions, as you can see, are really about improving communities and access to nature and green space and greening. And someone wrote in the chat, workforce development and sustainable development. So the solution space are very positive and active, and I think that gives me a lot of optimism. And also, it is really unique in our state, this sort of level of partnerships. We were recently at a national adaptation conference, which was very well represented by Massachusetts and just so many different sectors. And so that sort of cross-sector partnership and momentum is really evident across the country. Professor DeCanto, to answer your question, I think you're raising such a critical point in an area that I think there's a lot of research and thought on. Our new, well, I guess he's not new anymore, but our commissioner of the Division of Insurance is really interested in this space and has done a lot of thinking around how do we make these connections with insurance companies who share such sort of shared interests around resiliency and sort of community, regional scale resiliency as well. And also how do you support individuals who are taking action in terms of their insurance rates. There's also a lot of effort at the state on the Community Rating System program, which is the program for reducing flood insurance costs and premiums when individuals and communities are taking certain actions, and to support municipalities in getting into that program to reduce costs. But basically, I think this is an area where there will be a lot of inevitable sort of push and action in the future, and that we'll see a lot more there. But something I'm very interested in as well.
So I think this is our moment to say bye-bye, but I wanted to share some additional good news. So as we were preparing the panel with our wonderful panelists, we realized that there is so much material here. And so we are planning 2 more events in the fall, one focused on purely green economic development opportunities, and we're going to bring in the private sector as well. And then we're going to have an event focused entirely on renewable energy and energy transition and transformation. So stay tuned. The other consideration emerging from the last exchange between Rob and Maya, I'm actually transitioning to the London School of Economics. I will stay connected with UMass through the School of Earth and Sustainability. But one of the strengths of my university in Europe is the role of insurance. And I'm thinking maybe we can bring in and have an event focused on collaborations between private sector insurance and public sector. And we can explore that topic a little bit in more detail and see opportunities for replication of successful programs. and involve insurance companies in Massachusetts and in the US in the event. So stay tuned for an exciting program next year that is developing organically through your needs and your feedback. So thank you so much. Parting words before we wish everybody happy summer. Thank you so much for the School of Earth and Sustainability for hosting all this lecture series. Huge thanks to our wonderful panelists. Thank you to my wonderful research assistants who have been working really hard until late at night to analyze the data at the speed of light after we finished the data collection. And thank you also to all of you for taking the time to be here with us and continue the conversation. Let's consider this just the beginning or a continuation of the conversation, and stay in touch. If you wish to have additional resources, we will share them after the event. The YouTube video will be posted. I think our assistants posted the LinkedIn of the SES. You can find updates there about the posting of the YouTube videos of the lectures, and we will share all the materials and resources that were collected throughout the event in the chat over there as supporting materials for you in case they're helpful. Thank you, everybody, and happy summer.
Thank you.